starting off at a very low point with Kraven the Hunter.
Kraven.
Hooey.
All right. So this is the last of Sony's misbegotten Spider-Man universe without a Spider-Man movies. And Daniel, I think you've seen Madam Web and Morbius and Venom. I don't think either of us have seen the Venom sequels.
Correct. Yes.
If I'm comparing this to Madam Web and Morbius, it is as dumb as Madam Web and not as funny as either one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very dull movie. I'm gonna be honest. It's just, yeah, I really couldn't find anything redeeming in
There
it.
were, I will say, I liked the. Okay, so Kirsty, if you don't know what this is or don't know, just don't know what this is. Kraven the Hunter is a Spider-Man villain who, up until a certain point, was kind of seen as a goofy sideshow because he was just, he was a jungle man, but he was a Russian communist agent jungle man, the brother of the chameleon who was brought in to try to deal with Spider-Man because he had sabotaged the chameleon schemes a few times too many. And then in the 80s, I forget the name of the comic writer. He basically had this idea for a story where the villain replaced the hero as his last outing to prove himself the superior. It actually started life as a Wonder Man story while he was at Marvel. And I forget, I don't even know Wonder Man lore well enough to remember who the villain would have been, but basically it was going to be a Wonder Man story. And then then he moved over to DC and it became a Batman story, but that got rejected. Then he came back to Marvel and pitched it as a Spider-Man story with Kraven. And that story became Kraven's Last Hunt, which is unique in the annals of Spider-Man for both being a pretty serious story that actually kind of works as a one and done. It's basically like for Spider-Man almost what The Dark Knight Returns is for Batman.
Okay.
It didn't completely change how the character was viewed after that.
All right.
But that basically turned Kraven from a gag character to it really upped his profile in the Spider-Man Rogues Gallery, which is why he was this original member of the Sinister Six, so he probably would have been featured in other media going forward. But I think that the shine from that story definitely helped.
Yeah. Okay.
This had nothing to do with that, but I thought I would just recommend something good that's Kraven related as we talk about this. But the character traits I would assign to Kraven are that he's manly, composed, dangerous, deadly, largely unsympathetic.
Yeah.
I mean, in that comic book, in Kraven's Last Hunt, he literally drugged Spider-Man and buried him alive.
Oh.
For weeks.
Oof.
Yeesh. This Kraven has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, this Kraven they're almost trying to set him up like an anti-hero.
Right, which is okay, so there are some things you can say about morality of movie characters, like Mike, I'll just give example. Indiana Jones is the most pure character.
Yeah.
So you can have like somewhat non-heroic leads, but if you're a superhero story, your kind of mission in life is to present a clear moral foundation for the children and to have kind of more clear right and wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So all these Sony movies that star villains because that's all they had the rights to were stupid.
Yeah.
I kind of wish we had actually gotten a Silver Sable movie like they had talked about at one point, because then you would have had a actually I don't know how they would have cast her, but originally you would have had a hot platinum blonde Eastern European mercenary who was hunting escaped World War II villains. So like that's a concept that I think people could go for.
Yeah, I would have gone to see that.
Yeah. But alas, we don't live in that world.
No,
So,
no.
so this is basically an origin story for a superhero. Like if they ever had tried to integrate this with the Tom Holland universe, they would have had nothing to do with each other, nothing to fight over.
Yeah, and the only Spider-Man reference that I saw in the movie was a shot of the Daily Bugle's website.
And the fact that for some reason he's afraid of spiders because his mom would always talk about the spiders when she was having a psychotic episode.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, so he has a spider phobia. That's why he'd eventually fight Spider-Man, huh?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
But you might go, oh, DB and Daniel, you're just comic book fanboys. You're just unhappy because it doesn't match the canon. No, this is bad on its own merits too, which is a pity because like I kind of liked the opening scene and I was kind of getting into it for like the first 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, yeah. The opening part was pretty good. I mean, when he's breaking into a Russian prison in Siberia to
Right.
carry out a hit, and then escape using his animal abilities, you know, and
Yeah,
runs in the middle of a snowstorm.
yeah, like that was neat. And then it all fell apart because it was a bunch of flashbacks and flash forwards and for very uninteresting characters. Um,
Yeah,
so the overall story here is you have Kraven, who's played by
Aaron Taylor Johnson. Yeah,
Aaron Taylor Johnson.
who he played. He was Tangerine in Bullet Train.
Okay, man, I like Bullet Train pretty well, but I would never look at that guy and go leading man material.
Well, there were some rumors floating around that he was going to be the next James Bond.
No,
Yeah,
yeah. Even if he was in the talks, this destroyed that.
yeah. And hey, Ninja, good to see you. And we're reviewing. Happy birthday. We're reviewing Kraven the Hunter because it was on Netflix, and
And we make bad choices.
yes, we do.
But yeah, so Kraven is the son of Russell Crowe, doing his worst Russian accent as a Russian gangster, Russian oligarch gangster man living in London.
Yeah,
Probably because it was easier to film in London than to pick somewhere in Russia.
yeah,
And what occurred to me is that this is a half-assed attempt at being the story of Cain and Abel, sort of. Since you have actually no, never mind. No, Cain and Abel would have been how I would have handled it with him and the chameleon, because Kraven, strong, manly, fierce.
hmm
Chameleon has to work in the shadows, agreeable, kind.
yeah,
Right? It
yeah.
should not have been Kraven at loggerheads with his father. It should have been Kraven, the natural heir, dealing with the jealousy of his brother.
Yeah, that would have been a far more compelling story, but that's not what we got.
No. Um, so yeah, so Kraven has his dad, Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe can't do a Russian accent to save his life in this movie.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to unfortunately see Russell Crowe as a sign that a movie is not very good in 2025.
Yeah, he seems to have fallen into kind of the same trap a lot of actors fall into when they get late in their career, is they basically just take any movie they can get.
The Bruce Willis trap.
Yeah, or Robert De Niro. Yeah, just like yeah, well, you need the money that bad, huh?
Yeah, but he's a Russian gangster, big game hunter. He takes his two sons to Africa, and Craven is mauled by um, uh, a legendary lion. He is
Yes.
saved by a local, no, by another woman from London, who mother might have been local or something. I don't know, but they happen to be in the area, and her mother entrusted her with a magic potion and you'll know when to use it. She
Yeah.
uses it to save Kraven's life after he's mauled by the lion, and he proceeds to get superpowers and healing factor. You know, the most interesting power set ever, right?
Yeah.
And there's also something also kind of animalish about it.
Yes. Oh, it was the grandmother was the local.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Thank you, Ninja. Yeah, and so then he goes back to London, and he has a fight with his dad because his dad's like, you didn't shoot the lion because you were scared, and that makes you weak, and
Right. You know, it's basically your mercy makes you weak, but delivered badly.
yeah.
But also, I don't think of mercy when I think of Kraven.
Yeah. Yeah, and so then Craven runs away, leaving his brother behind, and then lives out in the wilderness.
Yeah. No, that was supposed to be Eastern Russia, right?
Yeah, like I was thinking, yeah, like kind of like near Alaska.
Yeah, could be Siberia. Eastern Russia covers a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
But guess what they don't have in any section of Eastern Russia? And I checked. Creatures that look like African Cape buffalo,
Yeah.
especially not a self-sustaining herd that lives for years on end.
What do you know?
But I think they needed something that big with big horns like that for the last scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, he basically goes wild, hunts poachers, and he becomes known as this infamous heroic figure who goes out there and kills mobsters.
Yes.
And then his brother, the chameleon, is kidnapped by the rhino, and it's just very stupid from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Ninja points out that yeah, Craven's father killed the lion that mauled him, and had the head on the wall. Yeah.
Right, which he eventually turned into his jacket, I believe,
Yes.
which he doesn't get until the last scene of the movie.
Yeah.
Okay, I know I've talked about this meme before, but just in case, there's this meme that goes around there called the surf ninja, or excuse me, the surf vampire, and
Yeah.
basically we're talking about the difference in modern versus classic pacing. In a classic story, you would have had a TV show called The Surfing Vampire, and the surfing vampire every week would have a surfing related adventure at night, at night presumably.
Yeah. Yeah.
In modern tales, you would have had a 10-episode Netflix series where the vampire learns about surfing, and in episode 10, you end like the last episode with a shot of him holding a surfboard as he looks at the sunset over the sea, and then cut to credits, and oh, we'll have surfing adventures in season 2, we promise.
Yeah.
Basically, this is all about him becoming Kraven,
Yeah.
and it's boring. It's very boring.
Yeah.
So I think rather than going through the plot, which is just it is what do you know? His brother was kidnapped, and so he goes on a bloody rampage. But the villain has minions who we must deal with in uninspiring action sequences. And there's a love interest question mark. Calypso, played by Ariana DeBose, and they what do you know? They have a big fight where they draw on elements that were previously in the movie.
Yeah.
We have the worst version of the rhino committed to film yet, which I suppose there's only 2, but still.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what? What? What is that? Is that supposed to be a scream?
Yeah.
Um,
And like their version of the rhino is like you brought this forward. It's like this weird mix of a Mormon missionary. What's his name from The Office? The Stephen Carell's character.
well, it was Dwight Schrute.
Dwight. Okay.
Yeah,
A born
Rainn
missionary,
Wilson. Yeah.
Dwight, uh, um, and the fake Mandarin, or the real, the guy who declared he was the Mandarin in Iron Man 3.
Oh
Because
yeah,
he had
that guy. Yeah.
because he had a similar sort of motivation of wanting to prove himself not weak.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then the last scene, they actually had a pretty decent makeup of Kraven's brother as the chameleon with that faceless white mask. It's like, man, if only he had gotten that power sometime before the last scene.
Yeah.
And Ninja says, "Oh look, we have a basic theme of what it means to be a hunter." Man, you're giving this movie too much credit. I don't even credit it as having a theme.
Yeah. 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 This is just like, I, what got me was when this movie came out and it was bombing. And the CEO of Sony came out and said he couldn't understand why the movie was bombing because it's not a bad movie.
Of course, you wouldn't think it was bad. You, your mother kept drinking and smoking while you were in the womb.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not a bad movie. Well, that's not exactly a ringing endorsement either.
Ninja says they jammed the theme in every scene. Right. I I refuse to credit their clumsy attempts to have a theme as actually having a theme.
If there was a theme, it was totally by accident.
No, if there was a theme, it was intentional, but it was so badly done that I deduct points.
Okay.
You have -3 themes.
Yeah.
And this isn't even like, again, this isn't Madam Web where you have hilariously bad performances or weird lip syncing. It's almost too competent for like weird audio issues. Like everything was reasonably good looking, although some of Kraven's animal powers scenes were a little goofy looking.
Yeah. And the CGI was rough in a lot of places.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Um, and then of course you kept having scene after scene of Aaron Taylor Johnson and Ariana DeBose fighting over who would get the Razzie nomination. No negative chemistry.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, this movie is just like, yeah, like you said, it's not even, it wasn't even it's in a so bad it's good. It's just bad.
It, I spent a lot of the last half of it half watching it on my phone while thinking about how I would have handled it differently. There are so many different ways you could have had cool things with Craven and Chameleon have like say you introduced that Craven was butting heads with his father. Craven isn't a good man. He wanted to go his own way, so he went into the he found he was a hitman for his father, but he found hunting humans boring, so he went into the jungles. And he's built his own little crime empire for himself in Eastern Africa. You could uh, pull it into African or Russian mercenaries operating in there. But then uh, Chameleon comes out of the woodwork, say, "Hey, brother, our father's been killed." By who? Why, it was by, and then you put in whatever Marvel villain you want to put in there.
Yeah.
And you have Craven going on, like, there's a matter of honor, and just have that be the theme is honor. And
Yeah.
and by the end of it, Craven discovers in like the last act, oh, you mean it wasn't the Scorpion who killed Dad? It was you pretending to be the Scorpion?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Ninja has kind of something along the same lines. Yeah, just have Chameleon orchestrate the whole thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly like that. Because like as the movie is, Chameleon is probably the most interesting character because he does have that whole kind of able thing where he has talents that his dad doesn't care about, and he is
Yeah.
the softer of the two, which is why it's weird to have two soft brothers when you can
Yeah.
have a contrast instead.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh well, what could have been?
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah.
Hmm.